Hello mathematicians! Today we're going to work on simple interest. This doesn't mean that it's simple to do, it just means simple as opposed to compound interest. But I think you will find that it's straightforward if you follow along. So interest is money paid on an investment. So like when you put money into the bank will pay you a little bit of interest. Or if you lend money to somebody, then they should pay you interest on that money. Simple interest is earned when an amount of money is borrowed or invested at a rate of interest for a period of time. So, what do all these things mean? The principal, or P, is how much money you put in the bank. The rate of interest, R, is how much you're getting in terms of a percent. And the period of time is usually just the number of years. So if I put in $100 into a bank account, then that is my principal. If they pay me 3% every year, that is my rate of interest. And if I leave it in the bank for 5 years, then that is the period of time, or T. These are the variables we're going to be using. P is for the principal, the amount, R is for the rate, and T is for the time. In order to figure out how much interest we get after a period of time, we use this formula right here. The interest we earn is the principal that we put in the account times the rate, the percent that we're earning, times the time, how long we put it in for, which makes sense. If we put in a bunch of money, we multiply that times how much the percent we're getting, times the amount of time we leave it in, and that'll give us the interest. So every problem we do from now on is going to use this formula. The interest equals the principal times the rate times the time. The first example we'll do is Jessica is borrowing $15,000 to buy a car. She borrows it for 3 years at a simple interest rate of 9%. So how much interest will she pay if she pays the entire loan at the end of the 3rd year? And what is the total amount that she will have to repay? Well, we know we're going to have to use interest equals principal times rate times time. The principal is the amount that she borrowed, so that's going to be $15,000. The rate we look at is 9%, so we can either write it as 9% or 0.09, because that's the same value. And the time is 3 years. So all we have to do is multiply 15,000 times 9% times 3, and if we plug that into our calculators, we get 4,050. So that is the amount of interest that she will pay, $4,050. But it also asks you, what is the total amount that she will repay? So she borrowed $15,000, and she's going to pay back $4,050 in interest. So the principal was $15,000, and the interest was $4,050. So we have to add those together to give the total amount that she has to pay back. She borrowed $15,000 and she had to pay $4,050 in interest, so she has to repay a total of $19,050 on her loan. Let's do another example. Nancy invested $6,000 in a bond at a yearly rate of 3%. She earned $450 in interest at the end of it. How long was the money invested? Well, we know we're going to use this formula, and the interest is $450. The principal is how much she invested, is $6,000, and the rate was 3%. So all we're missing is the time. How long was the money invested? So let's plug in $450 for the interest, $6,000 for the principal, and 3% for the rate. If I simplify, I get 6,000 times 0.03 in my calculator gives me 180. I divide both sides by 180 so that I can get t all by itself. That's what I want to do. I want to get the time all by itself. So when I plug 450 divided by 180 into my calculator, I get 2.5. So the money was invested for 2.5 years, or if you want to write it another way, 2 years and 6 months. So just to recap, we still use the same formula, interest equals principal times rate times time, PRT. We plugged in the interest because they gave it to us in the question. We knew that she invested $6,000 as her principal, and it was at a rate of 3%. What we had to do was figure out t. We plugged in the numbers we had, and then we divided by 180 to get t by itself. And that left us with 2.5 years, or 2 years and 6 months. So here's another great real-world example. John's parents deposited $1,000 into a savings account as a college fund when he was born. How much will he have in his account after 18 years at a simple interest rate of 3.25? Well, we're going to use our formula, and we got to plug in what we know. We know the principal was $1,000. That's what they put into the account. We know the rate is 3.25%, and we know the time is 18 years. So we have P, R, and T. The principal is 1,000. The rate is 3.25%, and the time is going to be 18 years. We can use 0.0325 because it's 3.25%. When we plug that into a calculator, the 1,000 times 0.0325 times 18, we get 585. So that tells us how much interest is earned. But the question asks us how much he will have in his account. If he started with $1,000, he's got to have more than that at the end of 18 years. So if he started with $1,000 and he earned $585, then his total at the end of the 18 years is $1,585. You have to remember, if they ask for the interest, then you just need to give them the interest. But if they say, what is the total amount in the account, you have to remember to add it back in to the total amount. All right, this is the last example we're going to do, and it is the trickiest. Mr. Johnson borrowed $8,000 for 4 years to make home improvements. He had to pay back a total of $10,320. So that is the interest plus what he borrowed. So we want to know, what interest rate did he borrow the money? Well, first of all, let's figure out how much interest he had to pay. We know that he borrowed $8,000 and he had to pay back a total of $10,320. That $10,320 is not all interest. Remember when we were trying to figure out how much total there was in the account in the last problem, we had to add what they put in and the interest to give the total. So to figure out the interest, we need the total minus what they put in, and that'll give us how much interest they had to add on to that. In this case, it's $2,320 is how much interest he had to pay on his loan. So now we know the principal amount he paid was $8,000. We're looking for the rate, but we know the time was 4 years. So we can plug in everything except for the rate into our formula. The interest he paid was $2,320. The initial amount that he borrowed, the principal, was $8,000, and the time was 4 years. If I do 8,000 times 4, I get 32,000. So now I just need to figure out how to get R by itself. Well, the opposite of multiplying is dividing, and I want to get rid of this 32,000. So if I divide both sides by 32,000, I will end up with R by itself. And if I plug in 2,320 divided by 32,000 into my calculator, I get 0.0725. In order to go from there to a percent, I just got to move this over 2 spots. So my annual simple interest rate is 7.25%. So that's a lot of steps, but just remember, everything comes down to this formula. Interest equals principal times rate times time. The amount you put in times the interest rate times the time that it's in for will give you the interest you have to pay. Hope this helps.